He's a nice guy, fights clean and works hard like anyone chasing their dreams. But somehow, Belal Muhammad has become one of the most disliked fighters in the UFC. It's not just one thing, there's a whole list of reasons why fans love to hate him, even as a UFC champion. So let's jump right into it and reveal why so many people roll their eyes, whether Remember the Name grabs the mic or steps into the cage. You've probably noticed how the crowd reacts whenever the camera pans to Belal Muhammad, whether it's at a UFC press conference or during an event. They love booing him. But the real question is, why does he attract so much hate? It's not just the fans. Fellow fighters, even those outside his weight class, often take jabs at Muhammad to express their dislike for the welterweight contender. For instance, the UFC featherweight champion Ilia Topuria, who competes 2 weight classes below Belal, once posted this about him. No finishes, no knockouts, no knockdowns, no girlfriend, no kids. Belal has never finished any man or woman. There's no realistic chance Topuria will ever fight Muhammad due to their size difference. Yet he mocked the welterweight contender on social media for seemingly no reason. So why does Belal spark such reactions? Let's start with the obvious elephant in the room. Belal Muhammad has a reputation for being boring. But just how boring is he? If you take a look at his record, Remember the Name boasts 24 wins, with 18 of those coming by decision. That's a staggering 75% decision rate. For a welterweight, a division known for its knockout artists and fight finishers, that's unusual. He's not competing in smaller weight classes like flyweight or bantamweight, where a lack of power and finishes is more common due to the smaller fighters' frames. But at 170 pounds, failing to finish fights consistently raises eyebrows. Even when compared to flyweights, Muhammad's finishing rate doesn't hold up. Take the current flyweight champion, Alexandre Pantoja, for example. Out of 28 wins, Pantoja has 18 finishes, with only 36% of his victories going to the judges. If flyweights can consistently close the show, why can't Belal? But it's not just the lack of finishes that makes Belal unappealing to some fans, it's his fighting style. Fans tend to dislike fighters who play it safe and avoid taking risks. Belal's style is heavily wrestling oriented, but instead of inflicting damage or actively working toward a finish, he often prioritizes control and position. To some, it looks like he's hugging his opponents more than a grandma at a family reunion. This kind of wrestling-heavy approach isn't necessarily boring if the fighter is active on the ground. Khabib, for instance, was a masterful wrestler, but he combined his control with relentless ground and pound, breaking opponents' wills until they either gave up or got finished. Khamzat is another example of a wrestler who doesn't waste time. He shoots for takedowns immediately and unleashes devastating ground and pound or locks in submissions to finish the fight. Belal, on the other hand, rarely shows the same urgency. His focus seems to be on maintaining control rather than inflicting damage or seeking a finish. This conservative approach can make his fights feel like a grind, with rounds often decided by minimal activity on the ground. Granted, Muhammad did score a memorable TKO victory over Sean Brady, but for most fans, that's the only finish they can recall from his career. To change public perception, Belal needs a string of dominant, exciting performances like the one against Brady to make people care about his fights. Belal's striking is, at best, average, and he rarely takes risks on the feet. The moment he feels threatened, he shoots for a takedown, controls his opponent, and waits for the round to end. Once or twice, fans might forgive this approach. But when it becomes the norm, it's not just boring, it's exhausting to watch. Imagine the fans' frustration when Belal Muhammad dominated their favorite fighters and outmuscled them to unanimous decision victories. Stephen Thompson, a fan favorite, found himself subjected to wrestling stickier than a honey-covered bear hug. Then there's Gilbert Burns, another beloved fighter whose bout with Belal bored the audience to tears, culminating in yet another lackluster decision win. Fans pay for pay-per-views hoping to see their favorite fighters secure thrilling finishes, but instead, they get to watch their heroes dominated for 5 rounds by someone nicknamed Remember the Name. Speaking of which, doesn't that nickname feel ironic? Belal doesn't do anything memorable in the octagon, nothing that truly earns him the moniker. If he were a knockout artist like Alex Pereira or a submission wizard like Charles Oliveira, the nickname might make sense. but with his decision-heavy style, it feels misplaced. There is, however, one rare example of a fighter with a similar style who managed to make people care about his fights: Colby Covington. Colby figured out early on that a fighter doesn't need to be loved to draw an audience. Instead, he embraced the role of the heel, making fans hate him so much that they tuned in just to see if someone could shut him up. Love him or hate him, people cared about Colby, and that's what made him a star. The worst thing a UFC fighter can allow is for fans to feel indifferent toward them, to neither love nor hate them, but simply not care. Unfortunately, that's the predicament Belal Muhammad finds himself in. With a fighting style that many fans find boring and performances that leave audiences dozing off, Belal needs something to make him stand out. A heel persona could make fans love to hate him and still tune in to watch. Instead, the welterweight contender remains soft-spoken, lacking charisma on the mic, and struggling to sell a pay-per-view. If a fighter lacks personality or isn't a natural talker, then they need to compensate with jaw-dropping performances inside the octagon. Fedor Emelianenko was a quiet, respectful fighter, but his explosive style made him a legend. Charles Oliveira is another example of a soft-spoken competitor who never trash talks, yet he fights with fearless abandon and consistently delivers electrifying performances. The rarest type of fighter is someone who can excel in both areas, talk the talk and walk the walk. Conor McGregor was the gold standard of this, combining unmatched mic skills with spectacular finishes in the cage. Belal doesn't have to master both, but he does need to excel in at least one. Either he should start taking risks to finish fights and deliver thrilling performances in the octagon, or he should adopt a heel persona that grabs fans' attention and makes them care about his fights. And then there's the infamous eye poke incident, a moment that didn't do Belal Muhammad any favors with the fans. UFC diehards still talk about that 2021 clash with Leon Edwards, where the fight ended as a no contest after Muhammad couldn't continue. The eye poke sparked outrage, with some accusing Muhammad of faking or overreacting, similar to the backlash Aljamain Sterling faced after Yan's illegal knee. Belal has repeatedly defended himself, saying he genuinely thought he'd gone blind in that moment, especially since the eye in question had already been through surgery. But the MMA fanbase, relentless. Many believe Muhammad was looking for an easy way out, especially since Edwards had clearly outstruck him in the first round. However, that theory doesn't really hold water. Muhammad was climbing the rankings, and a win over Edwards could have catapulted him into title contention. Why would he throw that away? Still, the whispers of dramatics persisted, with some labeling his reaction a performance. And Muhammad didn't back down. He's even said he felt he won the first round and was winning the second, which only fanned the flames for his critics. And then, probably not the biggest reason why Belal lost many fans, but still a factor, is his openness about certain political views and religious affiliations. Remember when Dana White told Yoel Romero to love his God all he wants, but not in the octagon? The thing is, the big boss had a point, and most fans can relate to that statement. The majority of people watch the UFC because they want to see good fights and excitement. They don't care about your views on political or religious matters. Belal Muhammad, who openly supports Palestine, is very vocal about his dislike of Israel, and this doesn't sit well with many fans. You can see here Belal arguing with a fan because he's wearing the Israeli flag. You can hold your political views all you want, but you don't have to express them publicly, especially when you're a popular figure and a UFC champion. It's not about taking sides, but about staying neutral. When someone openly shares their thoughts on politics or religion, it can feel like they're trying to impose their beliefs on you. However, this might be the tiniest fragment of reasons why Belal isn't getting the love from fans, but it's still worth mentioning. Overall, Belal Muhammad doesn't deserve the hate he receives from fans. He's genuinely a nice guy who climbed his way to the top through blood, sweat, and tears, winning the belt fair and square. Just look at his unbeaten streak right now. He's on an 11-fight streak, including wins over legends like Damian Maia, Stephen Thompson, Gilbert Burns, and Leon Edwards. This alone should be reason enough for fans to give Belal a chance to be liked and respected, rather than judging him for what he's not. Anyway, MMA is a tough sport where the audience has certain expectations from fighters, and if those expectations aren't met, fans can easily turn on them. That's exactly what's happened with Belal Muhammad. He is the most hated UFC champion of all time, and it seems the hate won't go away anytime soon. Unless Belal does something revolutionary to turn the tides. He has two options available. He either needs to adopt a more risk-taking style and deliver a few impactful performances like he did against Sean Brady, or he needs to channel his inner Chael Sonnen on the mic and embrace the role of a heel fans love to watch. However, that's easier said than done, especially now that Belal has pulled out of his upcoming fight against Shavkat Rakhmonov due to injury. The UFC matchmakers aren't particularly fond of Belal's fighting style, and they would gladly strip him of the belt if he stays inactive for too long. On the other hand, this could be his golden opportunity to turn into a superstar overnight. If he fights the winner of Shavkat versus Ian Gary and beats him in spectacular fashion, that's all it would take to become at least a more likable champion, someone fans eagerly anticipate watching in his next fight. And what do you fight fans think about this? Do you believe Belal deserves all the hate he gets? Leave your thoughts in the comments and make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this.